Very good morning to everybody who's joined us. Welcome. Nice to see you all. Nice early start. We'll just wait a couple of minutes, get a few more people to join, and then we'll get started. But whilst we're waiting, oh, okay. I think someone's got the children with them this morning. Hello. Okay, so we'll get started then. So, a very good morning to everybody. It's thank you so much for joining us. It's my pleasure today to introduce Nicola Roland, who's working with us as our head of projects. And that's really what we're going to talk about today is sort of how to avoid some of the pitfalls in project implementations and project management. So just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. This session will be recorded, as we said, with video recording it, and it will be available to everybody and indeed but only to Callisto members. All right, so it'll be on our portal. You're very welcome to join us as members. If you're not yet, then please get in touch with Esther and myself, and we'll be very happy to tell you more about what the membership entails. So just to get going then, we like these sessions to be interactive, those of you that are joining us for the first time. So please make good use of the chat, or indeed if you want to discuss something as well. And just to get you going then, I've already asked one question, so that please let us know where you're calling in from this morning. And then another one more related to our subject today. If you could automate one finance process tomorrow, what would it be? So give that some thought as we're kicking off, and just pop into the chat. Let us know which area of finance you particularly want to automate, if you could, if it was your choice. So I'll hand over now to Nicola. So please take it away.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Mark. So today we're looking at finance transformation, what it is, why it matters, and the 5 essential factors that drive success. Whether you're modernizing your systems, improving data accuracy, or ensuring compliance, these strategies will help you navigate the journey with confidence. A bit about me. I'm Nicola Roland. I founded ReSHAPE Finance Limited after having over 20 years experience in accountancy and finance. I was originally a client-facing accountant, then became financial controller for several top 100 accountancy practices in the UK. And then I was the head of finance transformation for one of those practices. So now I'm supporting SMEs with finance transformation, system implementation, data improvement, process improvement, or team development. So what is finance transformation? It's redefining processes that may have been put in place many years ago and are being followed because that's the way they've always been done. Enhancing the accuracy of data by using machine learning and technology to ensure you have good, clean data. Driving efficiency by using tools to take out the repetitive, normally mundane tasks. Ensuring the consistency of data to support a tech stack and future-proofing the finance team and function when it comes to business growth. We'll be looking at the 5 key pillars of success when it comes to finance transformation project, and those are a clear vision and strategic alignment, robust data management and accuracy, technology and system integration, risk management and compliance, and change management and training. So we've got another question, just to get a feel of where you are with finance transformation in your business. Please answer the following poll. Esther, if you could. What are the biggest
Visible.
hurdles in, yeah, that's there.
Thank you.
What's the biggest hurdles in finance transformation? And we'll give you 30 seconds or so. Okay, is that everyone?
Five more seconds. Okay, sharing results now, Nicola.
Thank you. So with most of you, it is system integration, and that, to me, in my experience, has been a big issue. It's making sure your data flows from one end to the other, which is part of what we're looking for today. Okay, thank you, Esther. Okay, so a clear vision and strategic alignment. Before a project begins, you should work out what you're trying to achieve and why you're doing the project in the first place. Is it for cost savings? Is it for automation? Is it better compliance? You need to understand if it's just for the finance team or whether it's actually going to serve the wider organization. That will determine who's involved in the project. So is it just finance teams? You need to find some people from IT, probably auditors, decision makers from across the business. These people will help drive the direction of the project and make sure it's serving all the purposes required. So getting that plan right at the beginning will ensure that the project is successful. So we've got another poll. How confident are you in your organization's data integrity?
Five seconds left. Okay, showing results now.
Thank you. So some are confident, which is good news. Getting your data clean and in a good shape will certainly help your projects flow well. Right, next slide. Finance runs on data, and bad data leads to poor decisions. One of the biggest pitfalls in transformation is neglecting data hygiene. Outdated, inconsistent, or duplicated data can derail all the best systems. It is so important to get this data clean. It protects the it protects the reputation of the business so that mail outs don't go to the wrong people. It improves reporting, decision making, and it helps with integrations. So how would you get your data clean and reliable? You could complete a data audit, automate validation processes, implement governance frameworks to ensure accuracy and reliability, and then train those involved in entering the data and how to enter it correctly. I found that ensuring the people who are entering the data understand exactly why it needs to be clean and consistent is critical for future-proofing any integration projects. It helps with making sure that everything is consistent and flows from one system to the other.
I think I'll just jump in there a second, Nicola. I think one of the things, certainly from my experience in this area, is the mindset around who who kind of owns the data and the responsibility. As we're talking primarily from a credit order to cash side, I think it's important that whoever's working on these projects, and if we're talking about sort of let's say we're talking about a third party implementation, that everything that happens in the database actually impacts us, right? So if we think about it, pretty well everything in master data from our perspective all culminates on an invoice or in our collections activities. So I'm thinking about things like the dunning letters suppression on or off, delivery addresses, pricing, etc., etc. I've worked in a lot of organizations where, from the collection kind of point of view, there's nothing to do with us. Master data work for somebody else. Well, yes, they may well do, but the master data impacts how well we do our job. So I think we shouldn't be afraid of saying, we need to be involved in the master data because everything we do depends on it. Yeah.
Exactly that. Making sure it works for every single area of the business is fundamental. So where are we? So when you are selecting a new system, it's essential that you understand how it fits in with the business, the wider business. ERP and cloud-based finance platforms offer scalability, but integration challenges must be addressed, ensuring seamless connectivity between finance, operations, and reporting systems will drive efficiency. Here are some examples of what should be considered as part of the selection process. I've found that a lot of businesses will focus on the cost or all the bells and whistles the product will offer, but they don't really understand how it will fit in with their current technology. Even if the whole package that's being offered by the vendor, will they actually use it? Are you paying too much for a system you'll only use 70% of? Understanding your current processes and how the future processes will look with that tool in place is a good way of making sure that you're going to use the product you're buying. Make sure it's a future-proofed product. So as your business expands, whether that's organically or through acquisition, make sure the product will grow with you. And then see what other benefits the product could offer. It could be that you're getting a credit control solution, but actually it can also help with your cash application. There's a lot of good things to consider here when you're looking for a new solution. AI and automation are transforming finance. Think predictive analytics, forecasting, and automated reconciliations to reduce manual efforts. Investing in tech that supports long-term growth is a game changer. I like to think of AI as a personal assistant rather than a personal replacement. It removes the routine tasks, leaving behind the more interesting and complex tasks for the humans to deal with. Again, this is highlighted here. It's supporting and not replacing people. So then risk management and compliance. Finance transformation isn't just about innovation, it's also about minimizing risks. Regulatory challenges, cybersecurity threats, and process vulnerabilities can derail progress. before an implementation project begins, conduct risk assessments, set up audit trails, and keep compliance at the forefront. Staying ahead of global finance regulations will protect businesses from mishaps. And identifying risks and understanding what could go wrong is as important as finding ways to mitigate risks. I'm just going to flip through this one here. So yeah, what you need to understand what could go wrong when implementing your new systems or solutions, but then understand how you can reduce that. And a big part of that would be training, again, how the solution fits into the wider business process as well as the specific thing it's looking at.
I think about the training aspect is so important of this, and one of the one of the things we talk about in Callisto really is that training kind of it forms into two areas. One area, of course, is actually understanding if it's a new system, what the actual new system does. That's one type of training. But the most important training really is understanding, I think as you mentioned it earlier, Nicola, is the where we fit into the end-to-end business, right? And the wider picture, right? Or even within our own order to cash, if you like, people not breaking people out of silos, really. Too often, one of the pushbacks we get for people doing our training is to say, oh, we're doing an implementation. We'll get everybody to understand the system and the processes first, and then we'll come back to you, Callisto, and then we'll do the qualifications and the workshops and so on. And we say, well, that's actually the wrong way around. Because if you want people to be able to implement effectively and to really understand what it is that, well, going right back to what you said earlier about what it is you're buying, you need to have experienced people that actually understand what it is you're buying, why you're buying it, and where the improvements are, what this new system can bring you. And I stress this a lot because, say, having worked with, gosh, probably more than 100 companies in different ways in the last sort of few decades, they still keep making the same mistakes, and you end up really just with the users, the operators, really just learning, doing what they did before, just with a new set of instructions, just pressing different buttons in different order, maybe getting some new shiny dashboards, but not being able to challenge and really drive, really drive the advantages that can be had. So, and then carrying on with that subject, the old pushback the other pushback we get apart from this mindset is, oh, we haven't got a budget for it. Well, if you're implementing technology, the training budget or the training costs comes out of the technology budget. And then I think that's a whole different conversation. It's not a learning and development thing. It's absolutely front and center of, if we're talking about a technology implementation. So budget should not be an issue, or it should be built into the costing, the actual proper training, shall we say, of the people that are actually going to be using these systems.
Exactly. I found that asking, or when I work with a business, I get to know the business and their operations, why they're doing it, how they're doing it. Then asking them the question why they're doing certain processes within that. And quite often they're like, oh, that's how it's always been done.
Yes.
And challenging on, well, we could do this instead, couldn't we? And they're like, oh, actually, yeah, we could. And actually, then we can automate that bit. And it's having that conversation with the business rather than go in with the product to say, here it is, this is what it does, and then walk away. I'd like to get in and really get to know them as a team, as a business, as a wider thing, and help challenge almost. Because if they've been doing the same job for 20, 30 years, they might not think to challenge anything. They're just doing it.
Absolutely. And alongside that when you're looking to employ consultants, shall we say, that you also, and you said earlier about the people that you're working with, and it's, it has to be a good fit, personality as well as product and so on.
Yeah.
And I think you can take this a stage further. I said I personally would advocate, to have consultants external, but consultants that actually have the experience that you just described. Not somebody perhaps from the Big Four who, because they work for the Big Four, therefore they know, because often they don't have the boots on the ground operational experience that, well, you and I have, for example.
Yeah.
So I think that's very important. And it's having that viewpoint where you can challenge what's going on now and make a whole raft of suggestions how it can be different in future.
Exactly. That's how I'm operating, I think, having lived in finance for such a long time and managed teams and seen the whole end-to-end process, it's invaluable in what I'm doing now. Right, let's carry on with the slides. So I've put together a simple flowchart of how I would look at a risk and compliance sort of review. So assess the risks, understand the compliance regulations, ensure the data's flowing, test the solution for any outliers, resolve any issues. And then this last bit is a circle. It's never going to be perfect. There are always going to be changes. So train the team. You need to find a champion, someone that knows the product backwards, but also is positive about everything you're doing. Roll out and then request feedback, and then all of the feedback will keep this little ring here going. As I said, things change all the time. Regulations change all the time. Compliance changes all the time. Your type of clients might change. So this is always worth repeating regularly, if not constantly. So I think time for another poll. What is the biggest challenge in adopting new finance technologies? Esther, over to you. Thank you.
Five more seconds. Okay, sharing the results now.
Thank you very much. So it's equal between resistance to change and integration with legacy systems. And again, I think I would agree with that. Change management is critical in projects, and especially transformation projects, because people don't like change naturally. And legacy systems, some systems do not integrate well with others. And it's finding ways to make that happen or consider a bigger change than what you're doing. Right. So talking about the change management and resistance to change, no transformation succeeds without people. Change resistance is one of the biggest obstacles. So organizations must foster a culture of adaptability. This visual demonstrates that. And I think quite often a business focus is at the board level, the C-suite, the owners, because they're the ones ultimately that have to sign off. But actually, you need to get the buy-in from the people that are using the tools day to day. They need to understand it. They need to be happy with how it operates, make sure it's doing everything they need it to do. Then I would say it's the customer relationship owner. So coming from an accountancy practice, that would be the client partners. Because if their customers suddenly get a lot of dunning letters out of credit control, for example, and they're not used to it or they don't like the tone of it, then the people that are going to get the negative feedback are the relationship owner, not the credit controllers. So you need to make sure that that level of people are also happy with the project. They understand what's happening. They know the changes coming. They're able to communicate that to their customers. Um, I'd then say operations because it has to be compliant, it has to fit with the rest of the business. External stakeholders, again, it's the impact to the people outside the business. So they would be your customers, but they don't dictate the change. If there is something they are not happy with, then you can adapt it. But normally a business will say, well, this is what we're doing, and then go forward from there. And then finally is the business owner, because they do have to agree and sign off on everything there. And then how do we get that buy-in? So I believe it's getting the right information to the right people. So whether that's training to the people using it and the wider team that might have access, say, into a portal, and then user groups again with the right people at the right times. Finding your champions that people can go to within the business if they need support or have a good question around it, and then make sure you're communicating the change that's coming. So informing the business that something is happening, and then as the project progresses, give them an update, an expected ETA of when it's going to go live, and then make sure they understand how it looks and how it's going to impact them. And yeah, that is pretty much all from me. Other than saying that finance transformation requires more than just technology. It demands vision, data integrity, risk awareness, and most importantly, people-centric change.
Okay, lots of things to hang our hats on there. I think if you can go back to the previous slide,
Yeah, of
Nicola,
course.
we'll um we'll leave that one there because there's an awful lot we can discuss there, and I'm inviting everybody who's with us. I think we got 25 people with us. So lots of experience out there, and I know some of you have got um I've got more than one t-shirt on project implementations, developments for, as I asked here in the question, for better or for worse. Um, some of the points I was going to bring up as well. Um, I think one of the main opportunities when projects are being looked at or considered, particularly say if we're looking at I know implementing a third party tech provider, is it such a great opportunity to engage all the credit O2C people. There's an awful lot of research can be done prior to kicking off. We were talking about the data at the beginning, and there's a whole load of relatively simple analyses that can be done, but they're all really important, and there are things that very often get overlooked. But the information that comes out says is interesting, it's important, helps us to understand what we're doing more, and it's a great way to engage. To even like let's say with cash allocation, for example, an area that tends to be often kept on the periphery, although they're so important. You can engage your cash app people and to run simple reports saying, how many transactions do we have every year, every month, every week, every day? How many different payment methods do we have? How many different payment terms? Are we paid by check or backs or wire transfer? Or whatever else. These are all important analytics, and we need to go right down to this level of minutiae. Um, and this then kicks into when we're looking at ways to reduce attrition. The key way to reduce attrition is to get the teams to feel like they're involved in something, that they're part of this. This is directly related to Maslow's hierarchy of needs or ikigai, or just good old-fashioned common sense. If people actually think they're part of something, then they're more likely to feel engaged. And I find I get frustrated when I see that with a lot of these projects, a kind of a super team is sort of dropped in by parachute from head office, the project team, and these are the guys that then sort of take over the whole thing. And that doesn't always necessarily end happily. Um, I have an example of that. Quite a few years ago, I was involved. I joined a company just after they'd finished a Oracle implementation. So I joined as the EMEA credit manager. Everybody was very happy and jolly with what they'd done. Um, so spent an awful lot of money on this Oracle implementation. And so, being a newbie, an experienced newbie, I was looking at this from the outside, and I met with the project team a few weeks later, and I asked them. I said, "Where's the facility to for my collectors to make notes? Where's the module that records disputes?" Um, and they looked at each other like I didn't really know what I was asking for. And I'm kind of stressing, look, these are basics, these are nothing new. I've been using these for since like 1980. This is nothing rocket science or edgy here. And they all looked at each other, not quite sure or kind of doubting my sanity, I think. And the answer they gave at the end really was, "Oh, the business didn't want it. The business didn't ask for it. Therefore, we didn't do it." Um, and of course, the business don't want it. Why would they care about credit controllers recording phone calls? Why would they care about disputes and so on? They didn't even know these options existed. So it took another, I don't know, between 6 and 12 months for me to actually get these things put in, which are basics, right? These are in the box. They were all there, toys that all came with the original project, but they weren't activated because people didn't know the relevance of them, which goes back to your very early point, Nicola, of getting the right people involved.
Yeah, 100%.
So, and these are basic schoolboy errors, as they say, sort of in the football world. And I think this still goes on. Um, the resistance to change, that's interesting. Again, I'd like other people's opinions on the chat here. What resistance to change and why? Perhaps some of that is obvious, but I'd be curious to know what your opinions are. I think was it 35% of people said one of the blockers is resistance to change. Um, Kind of why do we think that is, right? Why is the resistance to change? What's your experience, Nicola? People resistance to change for what particular reason do you think?
I
Reasons.
think it's in finance, there's a lot of personality types that just don't like change, whether that's in a business or in life generally.
All right.
Um, Seem to be a set type of people in a lot of the teams I've encountered. And I think a lot of people are scared of it because they don't know what the difference is going to be. The team I'm currently working with, some of them are like, well, am I going to have a job at the end of this? We're bringing in a new AR solution and looking at their cash application processes at the same time. It's like, yes, you're going to have a job, but your job's going to be much more interesting. It's going to take out the mundane. And I've actually, back to your point about understanding the teams, I've interviewed the whole credit control team and the whole transactional team one on one to really understand their roles and what they like and what they don't like about their jobs, how they're feeling, things that they would like to change or would like the system to do. And I think that's helped all of them, especially ones who are a bit unsure about it, really feel more comfortable about the process. That one, they're involved, their opinion does matter. But I'm only here to help them and make their day-to-days better. So I think you do generally get the pushback from a finance team. I think
Mm.
that's my experience in various teams over the years.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that, but I think I mean I can say for looking at my own experience over sort of since the early 1980s, and there's been many technology changes in the last 40 years or so. I mean, we went from handwritten ledgers to floppy disks and very basic reports. We literally reconcile credit control, inventory, which we used to keep by hand, and then we moved it to, say, very basic systems. Um, and there were no jobs lost. It was just changed. It took a long time to reconcile these records to make sure they were right before we switched off the handwritten system to the automated system. And then we went from that. Then we went into Lotus spreadsheets, and then Lotus very quickly changed to Excel a few years later, and then kind of Microsoft took over. Same thing again, another sort of technology revolution. And no jobs were lost. Really, it was say that the people that were engaged, aware, smart, well trained, there was a whole new bunch of opportunities for them. As you were saying just now, Nicola, you move away from um, just doing basic transactional stuff. I mean, Cash App's a great example, and I know there are still companies that post cash manually. Well, most of that can be done automatic, and then you're dealing with the exceptions, the items that are not matching, for whatever reason. But one of the opportunities there is that the cash allocation teams can be empowered to contact the customers themselves. I say that because so many organizations, the cash allocation people either have to talk to the credit control, the collectors, or they have to talk to the sales guys to get simple answers on a cash app query. But if you want to upskill your people and you want to involve people, then cash app can deal with the exceptions. All they're doing is contacting accounts payable. Hey, we received this payment, I can't reconcile it. There's a great opportunity for people to be more involved, more engaged.
It's giving back time that they don't have right now because they're doing all of this manual stuff that doesn't need to be done. One of the credit control ladies, she spent her days monitoring an inbox. So that's going to go. So you can actually then deal with the queries and the fun stuff. I call it the fun stuff. It's probably not fun for a lot of people. It's
Well,
more interesting.
but it is more fun, isn't it? I think there's always a temptation. And I remember when I took on my first shared service center team in Brno, um, and we had this thing where you had like everybody did collections and cash allocation together. And that had to go because I knew that people would spend all day doing cash allocation, right? They could make a simple task last all day, and it was very difficult to monitor and measure. Um, so of course, one of my early things was I separated them. You're doing collections and you're doing cash app. So because the collections were suffering, of course, that you think, oh, I can't be bothered today, so I'm just going to mess around with a bit of cash app, um, so yeah, I also want to bring in Zoe. I know when I was talking earlier, I kind of had you in mind, Zoe, because I know you've got vast experience in the last, well, certainly the last few years, and I was interested in what you were saying there about stakeholders and sort of the new possibilities need to be seen as opportunities, a bit like Nicola was saying as well. Um, Zoe, could I ask you to comment on that?
I mean, I can try. I mean, there's multiple ways of, change is change, and everyone's kind of gets a bit nervous about it. But when you're moving to a new technology, the first thing everyone's kind of full of wonder, oh, it's going to do everything for me. It's going to be great. It's going to make my whole job easier. That's the first initial selling point, get everyone hooked. But actually, in reality, you've still got the same actions to deal with. And then you've got to look at, okay, well, this is going to work differently, but how does the data feed? And I think, the way that you do the work is fine. And you can always make better ways of doing it and quicker. But if the organization needs data out of that, how do you then, extract it? Does it make it easier for you? Is it, and you go through this whole kind of, optimism, then, oh my God, this is going to be really hard. Then you go through this mistrust, kind of like the whole change cycle, where actually people are literally trying to reconcile back to the old system, line by line, penny for penny, to go, oh, and they find one error. It's like, oh, I can't trust the whole data, it's rubbish. We've got to go back to the old way. So I think you've really got to go through, that and know that actually, even as a leader or a project delivery, you're not going to please everybody. And if you try to please everybody and fix every single problem before you go live, you're never going to go live. But it is really trying to engage and mitigate as much of that resistance as you can. But, at the end of the day, change is hard. Change is going to be hard for multiple reasons, but you've got to get through those key things of trust, data integrity, and then you can work out the ways and how can I now make this again faster, smarter, and quicker. Everyone's got used to the old way. They do their macros, they do their downloads, they know how to access the data. They make, quick shortcuts for themselves to be able to do that. That all disappears when you have a new system. And then kind of they go through this phase of it's going to be more difficult for a while until I understand exactly how to get it, how to trust my data. But once you've got it all there, you've built the trust, you've kind of gone through that data accuracy, you can then start building. You can optimize on the things that the technology brings straight away, but there's still always those tail ends where, oh, but this division needs it this way and it comes out that way. And how can I change it? And sometimes it's a case of going back to the organization and saying, you need to change too. Sometimes that's not possible. And then you have to kind of find other ways to make your life quicker, again, using, better technology. So it's even better, and you can focus, like you said, on the key fun stuff, which I call kind of like your detective hat, where you've got to actually put some thought into what's gone on, why has it happened, how can I stop it happening again. Is it a process issue, is it a customer issue, is it just a one-off error kind of thing. But it's always interesting, and you always learn something. No matter how planned you go into something, you're never going to plan for everything that happens, and you've got to be adaptable. And you've just got to be, on it really to understand, okay, is it a really big issue, or is it a small thing that we need to then just iron out in the course of time?
Some great points there, and thank you. And yeah, I think one of the key points, there's a couple of key points there. One was that a lot of companies, saying in shared service center world, allude or call themselves a center of excellence, right? I think this is a great opportunity to genuinely be a center of excellence, right? And this is a mindset shift that you were mentioning just now, Zoe, that if this is going to be a credit O2C technology implementation, then credit O2C really should be the lead owners of it, right? And it's exactly as you're saying. We've got all this new kit and caboodle, all these new tools, all these new things we can do. This is how we can assist and help the business, right? Rather than like you said, and I've got anecdotes exactly the same as you're referring to there, where the implementation's taken place, and then the next 6 months is spent just putting everything back the way it was in the old system, which is not progress. If I guess if we kind of take that analogy, we still be have a horse and cart rather than the motor car or something like that. So you're absolutely right. It's having a lot of it having the courage to make these changes as well. And I was going to ask you both, Nicola and Zoe, because you got huge experience in these areas. Um, as a generalism, would you recommend that when you do these transitions, that you do it kind of country by country or business unit by business unit, sort of step by step? Get one 95% right and then go on the next one, or the Big Bang approach? What would you recommend generally?
I'm not a fan of the Big Bang approach, having seen it go very wrong in real life. And
Right.
I think if you're going across jurisdictions, it's probably better to do it one by one, just to make sure you've got the right rules in the right place and for compliance more than anything. But if it's same rules, same laws, same regulations, then maybe you can do a wider delivery. So I'll do it case by case.
But
Yeah.
that's also a key point. And I think the buy-in from the top, from the absolute top, whoever signs this off, the chief executive, shall we say, largely is um, that all the business units that are going to be impacted, that the whole point of doing this is to not do what we did before. So there are going to be changes, because one of the key functions of any shared service center or GBS is to have standardization. And that means largely the same across every country, every business unit, etc., etc. I think that also comes back to your compliance point. If you're being audited, you want the majority of things to be the same, right? And not bespoking for this country or that country or this business unit, because this is how we did it before and this is how we like it. Yeah.
I kind of think that it depends on the process and what's changing. Because if you have, a key process that impacts how you work together from an allied perspective, or from, processes that are end to end, then you need to really think carefully about doing it piecemeal. I think if it's a process and you're implementing a new process or you're trialing it, definitely, try and do a local region first and then localize it for, any external markets, etc. But I think sometimes if you went piecemeal on, say, a big technology change where you had a lot of allied interactions, it can create more of an issue pertaining to an extended interim period where you have to do manual workarounds, because items that used to talk to each other are no longer talking to each other. So I think sometimes you do have to bite the bullet and take that big jump, but it's very dependent on, what it is, the urgency of it, and how all the interactions work from an end-to-end perspective.
Okay. And another nice comment here. Absolutely agree with this, that the sponsors, or the business champions, as Nicola called them, they got to be engaged with this, and sometimes they got to, probably along with what you're saying, Zoe, that sometimes they've got to be pragmatic, but wherever possible, look to get all the new benefits out of it. Otherwise we just end up kind of going back to where we were before. Yeah, so it's a difficult one, but absolutely sponsorship from the top. And something else I wanted to bring, and something we talk about a lot. I know regular participants with Callisto will know that I have a problem with the word journey. Because a journey means you're going from a definite start point to a definite end destination, largely. And it is we often see that companies go into projects thinking this is going to be some kind of silver bullet or magic wand. So they're not actually really clear where they are at the start point, what their KPIs are, what they really mean. Is it all wrapped up in disputes? Therefore, we're back to master data quality and stuff like that. And then there's a lack of clarity very often as to what success actually is, as in, we're going to implement whatever system because we want to go from 25% overdue to 5% overdue, and we want to do it in 18 months, right? Now that's a very clear journey, right? And you're doing this technology change to achieve something very finite, very definite. I think we know something like 2/3 of projects are deemed to fail. And I think largely it's because the expectations or the understanding of what's possible is not really taken on board. So you see on LinkedIn quite often there's what I think is a rather silly question. What does success look like? Well, in our world, it's simple. It's as close to zero overdue as possible, right? That's success, right? But it can be relative depending on where you are at the moment and where you want to get to over a period of time. Perhaps, Nicola, if I could come back to you, have you seen situations where the whole point of the project has been somewhat vague?
Yes. Short
And
answer.
and help me here, keep going.
So real life example, I spent a lot of last year bringing in or attempting to bring in an AP solution. It was a really complicated approval process, involved 3 stages, like a 400-line map of the approvals. That's how complicated it was. And it was all ready to go live. And then I know the work there, but I know they still hadn't made it live. The licenses expired. It's just chaos. But they wanted an approval process. They wanted an AP solution to save time in the manual processing of invoices. Things were getting lost in inboxes. It was just not a good process. So we bought the product, we implemented it 95% of the way. but no one wanted to take ownership of it. So they just let it go. And to me, okay, that had a point at the beginning of the project because it's a needed thing. They wanted it, but then no one actually wanted to do the work and maintain the thing, and it all fell away. So yeah, I think it's the business champion, the leadership need to push the thing all the way through to the end and see it through. If they don't do that, then projects just die and fall away, and they're 50 to 90% done.
Mm.
But because the business kind of lost interest, no one then sees it through. So yes, projects do fail a lot. Planning is a massive part, the buy-in is a massive part, the training is a massive part, but it's achieving the goals that the business actually want to achieve that has to be prioritized.
And yeah, and understanding all the components along the way. And when we were rehearsing uh, yesterday, or yesterday, you were saying about a recent project where the master data had hundreds of thousands of lines, a lot of which were delinquent, right? Which I think again is an example of kind of knowing where you're starting, right? Can you
Exactly that.
just reiterate? Is that the one? Yeah.
No, that's that's a
Right.
different one.
Okay. Can you just
So this is putting in a credit control solution. We've got the data integrated out of the ERP into the solution, and they've got 112,000 customer lines accounts. But a lot of those accounts should be dormant or made inactive or archived or closed, but they just haven't been. So instead, the business has put in the company name after the name, asterisk, do not use, or no longer needed, or multiple different ways of saying we don't use this customer rather than just closing them. So out of 112,000 customers, I think I probably only need about 40,000. And it's now finding a way for the business to cleanse that data because it's the load of the data transfer. It's just ridiculous. And running a report where 80,000 lines that just don't need to be on it. So yeah, that's very key to keeping your data clean and then having a good routine around opening and closing clients when they no longer exist. A lot of people don't do the closing.
And that's where you could actually embrace technology to have a
Mm.
macro to run that every month and say, have
Mm.
we traded with this line in the last, I don't know, 3 months or something?
Or
Yes, no.
even three
If
years
not,
would be better than
well,
nothing.
yeah, yeah, but there's an opportunity, and there are
Mm.
so many fields, as I said earlier, so many fields in master data that just people don't actually know they kind of exist, and don't maintain them. Another one that was always dear to my heart operationally was the Dunning letter suppress field. That 10 years ago or 5 years ago, this was a big company, therefore we suppress the Dunning letters because we don't send reminder letters to our big clients. They downsized their trading, but they're still trading at a lower rate. Therefore, now they're entitled to have Dunning letters, but nobody's switched it on or off. So these kind of processes stay the same, and little macros could be run, like I said, every month, part of the housekeeping, sort of these Dunning letters are switched on or off, is this correct? Right.
It's
So
the internal review of those notes as well. I've got some customers marked as sensitive, but they don't know if they've been sensitive for 10 years or sensitive for 2 weeks. And when is that reviewed? So those people don't get the same chasing as the standard people because they might get a bit upset or they might push back or not like contact at certain points of the month or whatever. So they've been marked as sensitive, but yeah, there's no date stamp there. So how do you know if it's still relevant?
absolutely, and this is where the ownership comes in, saying
Mm.
who really owns this and who's responsible. And I think there's Joe. Is it right, Joe? The comment you made just now about you were saying about target operating model. Could I ask you to expand a bit more on that, or either vocally or in the chat? Because it's an interesting point you're making there. I'd
Yeah,
like to.
absolutely. So I mean, I work quite a bit in helping companies get the most out of SAP for HANA. And most companies want to do it in the background or they're sold a AI machine learning buzz. But the reality is how it works compared to SAP ECC, as an example, is completely different. The user experience using apps versus transactions, it's completely different. And I think it comes back to Nicola's point, where she was mentioning around accountability. People are so focused on the technology that they're not actually looking at the levers that you need to implement or when you're doing the business case or to prepare an organization to get the most out of the technology. So you asked a question earlier, Mark, when you're doing a generalism around transformations, is it by business unit or I think Zoe was mentioning by process? One of the big things for me is how is that organization structured? So does the CFO in the country report to the business unit lead operationally, or do the operationally report to the group CFO? And a recent client I had, it was functional to the group CFO who was pushing the finance agenda, but the reality is the power was with the business unit. Right? So I think some of those things are probably forgotten about, that everyone just looks at the tech and tech roadmap or even the process, but everything starts or fails based on people, and it's not just capabilities, it's how they're structured by teams. Is it going to be process-based teams or is it going to be business unit-based teams? A lot of those discussions are not had upfront because they're seen as too hard, but actually that's equally as important as getting your master data right.
Yes, and that kind of fits with our slide we're showing here. It isn't in the middle here. It says way to ensure stakeholder buy-in, and it comes right back to that fundamental point you're making there. Like, who is it we're talking about? Right? Who's it going to impact? Who's driving it? Who owns it? Who's accountable for it? And so on and so on. It's the devil's in the detail, isn't it? And like you said, we tend to overlook these points, and we bit like the old a cruise liner, you go steaming out into sea and you're still painting it and all the rest of it, yeah, and you not haven't really thought it through before you actually start. And then you get these personality clashes, don't you, as you, well, I didn't think it was going to do that. No, I didn't agree with that. Right? I don't want this. And then it's too late to kind of go back then, isn't it? So you're absolutely right. And I think as we're getting near the end, and thank you so much for that as well. Um, it all kind of really, so getting near the end, just to wrap up, it's the devil really is in the detail, isn't it? And it's thinking it through at a very, very, at the most tiniest things, the people, the database, what are we actually looking at? Do we actually know, to really think it through? So, Nicholas, we've got a couple of minutes left. Is there anything you'd like just to wrap up on from the great
Um,
discussion?
no, it's been really good. Thank you, everybody. Um, I just think it's always good taking that step back, understanding. So on the project I'm working on at the moment with the AR system, it's they don't really do any team reporting because they don't have the functionality right now. And I'm like, but what would you like to do? And making sure that that detail of those fields are also brought through from the ERP into the system, because setting up workflows is fine and sending out dunning letters is fine and understanding how your clients bucket together. But ultimately, what are you then going to use the system for within the team, KPIs, how are you going to set those? It's the bigger picture, not only just on the data bit, but actually the end result when the product is completed. What are you using it for, and making sure every single thing is brought through on the implementation phase. I think, yeah, taking a step back is always good and just looking at the end to end.
Rather than just steaming ahead.
Yeah.
Indeed, indeed. Okay. And I think just the last point, we talk a lot these days about AI. I think what you said about taking a step back and thinking about what we're really dealing with, I think it's fair to say that well, I think at the moment where we are in 2025, what we're really talking about is not AI, but IA, intelligent automation, really smart machines that analyze a huge amounts of data very quickly, but we're still really at the stage where it's machine learning, as you just said, Nicola. But the machines learn very fast. So AI really is something where machines think on their own and do their own thing independently. Um, there are hardly any examples. There's one or two around the collection and chatbots and that kind of thing where bots react, but they're still programmed by humans. So that's why I think we're not going to lose our jobs, because it is intelligent automation, right? And it's down, and the opportunities are huge for us to still to continue to create the programs, the systems, the processes, everything Nicola's been talking about, the communications and everything else. There's still a vast amount of opportunities for us if we grasp them. So time's up. Thank you so much again, Nicola. That was really interesting. Thank you everybody for your contributions. If you do want to know more, as we've just flipped to the last slide, we will please get in touch with Nicola, myself, Esther. And if you're not, follow Callisto Grand, and of course Nicola's company as well on LinkedIn. And yes, as it says at the bottom, you can meet Nicola and all the rest of the Callisto team, and quite a few of the people that are on our call today. You can meet us all at our conference in Budapest in October. And we very much look forward to seeing you all again next month when we're back for our next session. Otherwise, in the meantime, take care, stay safe, God bless, and thank you all again. See you soon. Take care. Ciao, ciao. Bye.